welcome everybody tonight. My name is Aaron Baker. I'm the Director of Art and Programming here at Epiphany. Thanks to everybody in the room for attending tonight, as well as to those that are on our live stream, because we are live streaming this discussion this evening. This is the first in a series of 2 panel discussions that we're holding here at Epiphany in connection with our upcoming exhibition, Family Resemblance, the Evolution of Chicago-Style Graffiti, which opens on March 4th of next year. The exhibition is a collaboration between Epiphany and She Gallery, run by the amazing Dolce and Diaz over here to my right. And it's curated by Dolce, Michael Pauletki, Tyrone Whiteside, and B-Boy B. Tonight I have the distinct and amazing pleasure, great hat by the way, this is the first I'm seeing this hat, of introducing 6 iconic pioneers of Chicago graffiti: East, Fess, Orko, Slang, Trickster, and Nick Fury, who is performing as our moderator tonight. In this conversation, moderated by Nick Fury, the artists will explore their histories and personal involvement in the development of Chicago graffiti. They'll touch on gentrification, violence, suppression, and gangs, and will also examine graffiti as a spontaneous, healthy outlet that has developed into a worldwide phenomenon. We will have a Q&A after the discussion, so I ask that you hold your questions until the end. We'll have a microphone over here so that you can ask your questions. With that, I'm going to hand the mic off to Nick Fury here, who's going to run our conversation. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Yes, is it good? Okay. First question, can anyone identify this right here? Can anyone see what I have in my hands? Okay, take it out the box. Okay. Let's see right here. Okay, step right here. This right here. Okay, Griffin, who said Griffin? Oh, Griffin shoe polish. Um, what does Griffin shoe polish mean? You know, does anyone know what is the significance for what this right here is for? What now? Okay, can I have some more answers? For shoes. Shoes, bombing, whatever. Vandalism. Fun vandalism. Keyword, fun vandalism. So, Slang, can you explain a little bit more about like what the use of this is? This is like very important to the graffiti culture. So can you just elaborate on why we use this and maybe the significance for?
Oh, things that we had that were day-to-day items to use to create or mark up things in territory. It was something we used as, I guess, whatever creative outlet we were going through when it first started. The movement was new at the time, so anything that could be used that was of some sort of permanence or could be used to apply, that medium to whatever we were writing on. That Griffin shoe dye was one of the most permanent and hard to get out. If you got it on your shoes, it was on there forever. You can just get rid of the shoes or go over with some white dye.
You have to let your skin eventually fade it off. Take a long time. Right.
Mhm.
So did you hear what he said? So if it dripped on your hands or got on your skin or whatever, you had to rub it off. I remember getting it on my hands and I had to use sandpaper, like to get it off, because of
It
the
stains.
high. There's a lot of chemicals that's involved in it, but it was very deadly. But it was a weapon that we used against the public transportation, because of the quality. So it was a very dominant liquid. So it was very hard for anyone to remove it. So that was one reason why we use Griffin shoe dye. So there's always a different alternative way of tagging or writing or something like that. So that was all discovered during trial and error and through evolution. So Trickster, you want to talk about the kind of like evolution of kind of like Chicago graffiti?
Sure. Um, well, essentially, the evolution is ongoing as the development still persists to this day. But in its earliest beginnings, Chicago graffiti was pretty straightforward. It mimicked and it appeared as more traditional forms, but we did have a few significant artists who kind of pioneered Chicago-based forms. And essentially, at that time, I would say the late '70s, the early '80s, like some of our own personal crew members and some of the existing people who have been coming here from different states, New York and other things like that. And I would say that's how the foundation really initially got started.
Okay, great, great answer. Did everyone understand like what he was talking about the evolution of how Chicago graffiti started? Yes, we all understand. Okay, perfect, perfect. So um, I'm gonna go over to Fest. So Fest was one of the founding members of a crew called ACW. So can you just give like a brief background of like how that crew started?
Well, ACW stands for All City Riders. And that meant that all the members on there, or most of the members on there, were literally riding the trains, buses from one side of the city to the other, always making themselves known, putting up their tags. One of the most um, prolific in this thing was Hate. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, and he was one of the main members. He became one of the main members because he continued on and on, especially on the north side. I myself have been on the southwest side of Chicago, Little Village, Pilsen area, and I was taking care of that area. When I say taking care of, basically keeping the name ACW and keeping myself um, known in that area. Didn't venture too much on the north side. My main stopping uh, was the downtown area, working at Sheldon's Art Supply Store on Wabash, and also Columbia College. So on a daily basis, I would ride the trains, and of course, on a daily basis, my name had to be on there somehow. So in that sense, ACW became citywide. I left ACW at the point where Hayden and I got into a discussion about me being old. Bro, you're too old to be a writer, man. Forget this. You're too old to be. So from that point on, I decided. Well, and he was right at the point where we're talking about all these teenagers that even some that are on the stage, like my my adopted son here, East. These were all kids. At that time, I was 20 years old. I was married. My lovely wife, Cindy, and in '86 we had our daughter. So I was out there painting with these teenager guys. So at that point, like, oh, you're too old to be a writer. So I'm like, you know what? I don't need this. So I became OMC, one man crew, which I was able to tag. I was able to put up pieces. I was able to do things without needing an actual crew. So,
Good. So Fest, when you were in your part of town and when you were uh, not traveling, so did other nationalities come into your neighborhood? So what is the significance of different nationalities as far as graffiti goes, as far as crew goes?
the main nationality that was in Pilsen still is same thing in Little Village was Hispanic.
Okay.
Okay, but certain parts you had you had other nationalities. That one of the members that actually hung out in my area, Orko, and he was out there. He started in the Douglas B line, which now is the Pink line. Figures. Um, that was that was basically my domain there, the Douglas B line, and that's also where I took East to do his very first piece as well at a place on Western Avenue, which everybody said that that was my art gallery because I had the whole like a whole bunch of walls done up. And but as far as other people coming in from like he was there, there were some other people like this guy Concept. He was also black. Not too many people, well, that I know of from the north side would come all the way to the south side. And same, not a lot of people from the south side would go all the way to the, to the north side. I think everybody at that time kind of stuck to the area that they knew.
Okay, good answer. So is everyone kind of understanding like the the demographics of graffiti? Does everyone okay? There's someone that's shaking her head. Okay, Slane, can you explain like the demographics of the graffiti of, you know, of course Chicago is segregated, but while we were doing graffiti, depending on like what era you were from or what neighborhood you were from, um, we didn't see that as someone being a different nationality of like, oh, we're not going to associate with that person because of the different nationality. So graffiti brought us all together while we had meetings at the Museum of Science and Industry and South Side, North Side, Lincoln Park Zoo, even Cabrini Green. So can you talk about the meeting, the epic meeting at the Cabrini Green?
Well, it's a lot tied to that one. That was at the earlier stages. So just to maybe start it off in a sense of what graffiti, how most of the graffiti artists met each other was really tied to the transportation system, how vast it is, and what size it goes to every side of town. A lot of the majority of schools as like that that aspect of hip hop, which some can say graffiti wasn't originally an original part of that, was tied to all everyone who was just getting to know this new movement or becoming a part or learning, because it was all experimental at that point. We didn't have There was no golden book or anything. Everybody was just getting pieces off of everyone on how to do it or different ideas of influences. You'll see everything from, I think, television and different shows inspired me from the first time I'd seen a train. So my area of my tie-in with it and the areas was me living in the west side, then moving over in the area of Wicker Park. Some graffiti writers there, some, or and that's at that point is DJs, break dancers, but there was also the house movement too. But I may be straying more off because I can't really find point like what it is that you want me to like answer.
If I can chime in.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
As segregated as Chicago is,
Yeah.
we didn't pay heed to that because we identified people we met by at a meeting or on the train or by what they wrote and what crew they were. The race never really played a part. So there was in this
there was definitely
subculture that unity of us being writers overshadowed anything about what race are you from, what area are you from, or whatever. It was mostly about we're doing this thing together, and we didn't feel segregated.
Exactly.
Even though, if we were in segregated areas, once we saw each other and knew what, I saw your tag up, which is their signature. I saw your signature somewhere over here. I know who you are. Immediately, we were talking on a level-to-level basis. So as segregated as Chicago can be, once we were, involved in this subculture and writing and meeting other writers, that all just kind of went away. It was more of a level playing field.
Perfect. So
one more thing. That
oh, yeah,
also
sure, go
took
ahead. Yeah.
that also took something that it brought a lot of us together. Where there was a small little story that we were talking about upstairs, where there was a time where he was on the west side, and Orko's like, "Whoa, what are you doing there? Oh no, dude, you gotta come over here. Don't talk to anybody. Don't smile at anybody. Nothing."
Quite literally, probably saved my life.
So it's like he knew to take care of him because he was gonna be in trouble in that area. Okay, but we didn't see it that way. We didn't see like, oh man, he's black. No. We were writers. We weren't, oh, that's a black writer. No, we were writers.
Right. So family, right? Family
Yes.
resemblance. So that's the name of this panel, and it's in the there's information that's in the brochure that's out. So Trickster, can you elaborate on the family resemblance?
Sure. And elaborate really quick. Can I touch on?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, piggyback off that. So essentially, yeah, coming up during those times, a key point I think that should be emphasized is that due to this segregation, graffiti, the whole principle and concept of the hip hop culture, and graffiti being the first element of the hip hop culture. Some artists say otherwise, but the first element of this movement, of this modern urban earth movement, originated with graffiti and graffiti writing, and this brought people from all walks of life. You were Spanish, African American, Black. You from Africa. You from Lithuania. I had friends. I went to Lane Tech High School, so I had a really diverse audience of people, and our essence was about coming together as one. I've said before that the hip hop culture emulates and what the concept of the American culture, immigrant culture, and American culture was about. People from all walks of life coming together for a unison, for one project, and that is what hip hop is essentially, and what it still holds true to today. So our concept here, we're calling this event here, and the pending show, Family Resemblance, gives credence to that, and that we are a universal family. So no matter from where any other type of cultural designation comes from, our essential family origins is universal through the arts and through the culture and what we did.
Great. So talk about family. I just want to ask the audience one question. So, do we look alike? Do me and Orko look alike?
Yeah, y'all do kind of look alike.
Wait, okay, some people said no, right? Okay, right.
You know, I've had people mistake y'all for each other.
Exactly. That's the point that I'm getting at. For our career, as long as we've been writing, everyone always confuses us. I'm out at an event, someone calls me Orko. So that's the reason why I brought up this question. Could it piggyback off of resemblance? So now, one last question. Do we look alike? Can anyone in the audience say no? Okay, yes, I am being still. Okay, do we look alike? Yes or no? No.
You resemble.
That's the only thing that I want to hear. Okay, so now it is done. We don't look alike. We're two different people. He's Orko and I'm Nick Fury.
This has been going on a long time. So essentially, but to finalize that on the family resemblance concept, okay, our family being the emphasizing the concept of the origin and evolution of graffiti and how graffiti looks and done. So each crew, like all of us come from a different crew. Like he was ACW, Kisa crew, Pin One crew, ABC. All these different crews are like a family. So each crew may have 15 artists here, this crew, 30 artists here, 20 artists here, and so each crew, you're challenged to create a style of lettering, an art, or whatever it is that you do, and you bring it together as a whole composition as a group. So each group had a particular look to the way their work looked. So this is how we coined that term and attached it.
Well, I want to say there's another level to that.
Oh yeah, it goes on. I'm just trying to summate it.
Another level to the family resemblance is also that at one point we all fed off of each other and took what we learned from each other and moved that forward. So even though I was in a different crew, I had a different style, different name, everything. There was aspects of Fesky Fest, who was one of my first mentors. There was aspects of Slang, and Orko, and Trix, who were some of my, became some of my best friends and painting partners and influences. And we would sit and talk about letter structure and how letters should look and flow. And then, these things kind of blended together, creating almost a resemblance. Even though, one of the main goals of style writing, graffiti, is to stand out and do something different. But inevitably, when you're hanging out with your friends and you're doing sketching sessions and stuff like that, and you're feeding off of one another, things are going to bleed in. And you can
it's
only
like gaining
hope.
it's like moving out of from an area and you gain an accent just from the people that you're around. You can pick up another language or learn, patterns or exaggerations influence directly or sometimes not indirectly.
Yeah.
You know, so the
I think that's a
influence is
strong
always there.
element of this
And
famous
that's
resemblance.
what graffiti kind of did with the world. It mashed all the cultures together, in a sense, all the visual aspects. If you look at different areas of art, the majority of the work that you'll see right now is a mash of everything from contemporary to fine art from 500 years ago. All of it is being tied into one. So it becomes everything becomes that point of relationship in a sense visually.
Yes, that's the dynamism. Now, another key point that everyone should be aware of is that the graffiti art form, there has been no new movements in the art world since graffiti. There have been no new genres. And graffiti in itself is dynamic in that it encompasses all other art forms. Like we utilize all of the old styles of painting. We utilize it with our rapid medium through a rapid application through a sprayable medium. So we can duplicate what we're saying. Like you have different art styles, pointillism, you have abstract art, you have any of the other myriad of other art forms. We can duplicate and mimic any of these other painting styles. So what we do with what we do is we work with the letter form. The letter form is the emphasis versus the pictorial image, because the letter form encompasses the pictorial image in the sense that anything in existence that's visible or that's known, we can describe it. So we utilize the universal letter form as the focal point.
So I just want to touch on something. So East mentioned standing out. So as a graffiti writer, graffiti artist, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to stand out. Slang mentioned fine art and graffiti moving into another space. Trickster mentioned abstract. So at a very early age in my career, I decided to kind of deviate from a letter structure to do abstract pieces. So I was one of the very first writers to start doing abstract pieces, for the fact that
Yep.
I wanted to stand out of 2, 3, 4, 500 writers all in Chicago. How can I stand out? So that was like one of the major things and the mindset that I adapted to stand out. So I became like known for doing abstract pieces. Not a lot of writers in Chicago were doing abstract pieces, maybe 2, 3, 4 at the most. But it's just a way of progressing graffiti, progressing the movement. So even though it is true, graffiti is based off of letters. It's a letter form, movement. But I just wanted to deviate and to stand out because of, in the subculture of graffiti, you wanted to get up more, you wanted fame, you wanted to be known. So it was just I just thought it was a smarter way, instead of having 1,000 tags all over the place. Well, I can do something completely different and just stand out in that way. So,
touching
yeah.
touching on that, kind of became the opposite. I did a couple of wild style pieces. Wild style would be the letter form that's like unreadable to a lot of people other than other writers. Uh, and I did a couple of them, and I would ride the train the next day going to work. And one of the pieces that I did, uh, I heard two ladies talking. Oh, look, there's another one. Oh, it looks so nice, but what does it say? They couldn't read it. So it was at that point where I'm like, you know what? Forget this. So every piece after that, I made sure that it was very readable. So it's like Mr. Fest or Fest, or, I did like, just, it was just that it's readable. I couldn't, not that I couldn't do wild style, I was able to, but the opposite. I wanted to stand out, not the wild style, not, oh man, that looks nice, but what does it say? So my pieces were for the public. Other writers were gonna appreciate them, but for me, it was more for the public. And every single piece that I did since day one, it was always to Cindy, my wife. And then after my daughter Tess, to Cindy and Tess. And then when the twins were born, to Cindy, Tess, and the twins. So still, it was for the public. It wasn't for other writers.
There are different approaches to make
Yeah.
stand
So Orko, writing is for the public, slash for other writers. So what is your opinion about that? So when you were writing for other graffiti writers or were you writing for the public?
Well, let me start this off the right way. I lived in San Francisco, California, and I went to a place called Fisherman's Wharf, and I joined a group where we was pop locking, and we made $500 a day.
When was that? What era
That's
is that?
81. So by the time I get back to Chicago, here come the break dancers. So now we spinning on things. And I saw a movie called Beach Street. I put the linoleum up. I said, I got to do exactly what that dude is doing on that train with my name immediately. And I'm from a little neighborhood called 43rd and Cicero. It's a little boxed in, little black neighborhood.
Leclerc Court.
30 people. And me and Nick, my partner in crime, would go downtown to the art store, and we rode the 54B train, and we saw his name every day, and we didn't know how he got up on that roof. Hey, man, we got to get up on that roof, man. That man name up too much, man. So I became friends with two of his close buddies, Dev and Void. And Dev and Void was cool with me because I was with DTR. They're like, well, we like you, man. You all right. I'm with y'all. What's happening? Well, you can't come to our neighborhood. Well, we're going to figure it out. And one day, we made a mistake of overlapping the subway train on a Douglas B line. And if you go downtown on that train, it becomes the O'Hare line. And when we came out of division, we saw these guys. And we said, come on, man, y'all can't do it like this. We got to get down with this right about now, man. So we ABC, CTA, and UPS, that whole clique. It was a bunch of them. I can't remember all their names. All I know, they had a bunch of walls. It's really nice, but if you didn't have a super transfer, you couldn't ride back and forth.
Some of you probably don't know what a super transfer is.
I can't ride back and
Only
forth.
on Sundays.
Does anyone know what a super transfer is?
It's when you
Right,
ride
that's
all day
super
on
transfer.
Sunday.
Yes, raise your hands who knows what a super transfer is.
Who came
Okay,
here with
cool.
a walker?
All right.
So check this out. So I was telling one of my friends, I was like, man, I met Fesk, right? And I was from a crew where we had a guy that was drawing a lot. And we was trying to practice, and we would come to the crib. He'd just throw our sketches away like we weren't nothing. Nick Mother brought us a book called Subway Art. I flipped through the book, and I wasn't excited. I said, I've seen all this before. This dude was a biter. I said, man, I met Fest, man. I'm out. I'm going to get on ACW. So when I tried to get on ACW, and I met Hayton back in the days, it's like, we really ain't rocking with Leclerc Courts. All right, don't worry about it. So just so happened that I rode the South Side, because my mom's from the South Side. I see a piece on the wall on the South Side, the only one that was nice like theirs. And it said Warpified. Where is he from? Let's go find out who this dude is. So back then, I don't think you guys know, it was the green and white trains before they turned them silver. We couldn't get the trains running because they would buff the trains. I said, why don't we all go to the yards at the same time? Warp said, well, how we gonna get everybody at the meeting? I said, well, you get everybody else south. He said, what about them boys over there? I said, I'm going to call Bill Shelton and get Trickster's number. We can get everybody there. So we wound up throwing one of the best meetings, right? But
the only meeting, the first and only. I mean, the first of that kind.
Of that kind, right? So everybody met each other. So we all became like, these are my best friends. And I know they're from different time zones. And I decided that if you kind of got on the phone with me and said Chicago wasn't the best, you probably had a problem with me. So I went back to California and changed the whole landscape. And I never stopped being Chicago. And I'm like, man, I'm from Chicago. I don't know what y'all got going on. And I was like, because I had him. If it was some cartoons, characters, I had him. Letters, I had him. Getting up, I had him. I had everybody with me. I'm like, man, y'all really want it with us? And then me and this dude goes out to New York City, and I kept telling everybody, why y'all keep talking about Chicago ain't the best? I mean, I think I'm like the first Michael Jordan. That just came out like, you're kidding me. We gonna battle. Because we came from a battle neighborhood. Now, I lived in 7 neighborhoods. His neighborhood wasn't safe. His wasn't safe. I didn't know where he lived. He lived downtown in a high-rise building, and I used to watch him growing up. So when I start meeting all these different people and I can call their phones and go eat at their house, you know how many foods I know how to eat right now? I eat at everybody's crib. Man, I know everybody. So I just kept saying, and then the thing that messed me up about this whole graffiti thing was I thought that at the school, because I went to Kennedy, I thought that because I had a black teacher, I was gonna be straight. And I ain't gonna tell you this story, but I had some airbrushes. So I'm in the back of the class, so they had the advanced class coming. The advanced class came and they started drawing apples, and then dude said, go get Rodney, because I'm from the projects. They're gonna go get their main man.
Right. So the synopsis, though, is what you're saying is that you didn't write for writers, or you didn't write for the public.
Right.
You wrote for food.
Exactly.
You wanted to go
That's
around
what it is, yeah.
all cities so you could get different
You
food.
wrote to
Well,
eat.
no,
Yeah. That's what it is, yeah.
Actually, this is a true story.
Right,
though.
right.
This is a true story. No, I wrote for the city because I couldn't, from my neighborhood, you didn't have a chance to meet different people. There's still people in my neighborhood right now that still live over there that cannot leave off of 43rd and Cicero. They ain't been nowhere. They ain't know how to go downtown.
40 years.
Right.
It
So
pulled a lot of us out of our comfort zone
right.
in our area.
So he's writing for the city. So a lot of writers have that mentality of writing for the city or writing for other writers because
I wrote for myself.
Wrote
I
for
wrote for
himself.
myself, too.
He wrote for himself.
That's the
So,
challenge. That's the
right.
challenge.
It's
No, now the murals that I do that for the public and
for the
people.
public.
But when I started, my idea, my quest of doing trains was to do the biggest and the best, or the most.
Right. So did everyone hear
It
what
was
he
an
just said?
obsession. Through the gate.
Okay, because graffiti is exclusive. It's sort of
And it wasn't born from an academic. If you think about it, it wasn't born from an academic sense. This culture was born from children.
Yeah.
And if you really think about it, just like what Fess was saying about how he did all these things for other people.
right.
He was he was an adult at that time. When I
At
met
that
him,
time already, yeah.
when I met Fess, I was like, wow, you got hair growing on your face. we was like that young. I was like, and we were kids, like, who could get put on punishment, depending on your parents, maybe we sacrificed a lot, like just going in the yards late at night and coming home to parents who either
Curfew.
wanted to peel
Their
your
parents-
head.
Right.
Excuse
Curfew
me,
time.
their parents
We
would
dealt-
trust me because I was an adult.
Mhm.
I was married with wife and kid, and they would call their mom and, hey, I'm by Fess's house, and they
Yeah,
knew
I'm
that
having
I was
a
married.
sleepover.
So they'd be
You
like,
was a safe
"Ah,
adult. You
you're
was
good."
more of a mentor. You was more of a mentor in that sense.
He was the
When I first met
chaperone.
you,
He was the chaperone. Anytime we had a problem, like,
Right.
we with him. They
Like,
like, you guys aren't dating. No, we with
Hey,
him.
but
Yeah.
look, like if you want to break down the whole thing of this thing, what if everybody in this room could meet all of their heroes from the time they liked somebody to right now? I did it. I met everybody. I met everybody all around the world. Michael Franks, Pat Metheny. I met everybody. I met everybody from meeting these guys, and they never. You know what they did? They gave me motivation to like be the best ever. Like, you gonna be all right. Even when I thought I wasn't all right, you're gonna be straight, shorty. You just keep on going. I'm like, where am I going? Don't worry, just keep going. And this one, I started with this one. I grew up with these. I ended up meeting him later. I ate lobster at his mama's house. So, I mean, all these things. Cause you gotta think about this. This shit, you go home and it's really happening. And you're like, man, it's really happening. You call your mom and your mom ain't doing so well in life. You say, Mom, I was at East House. We had lobster and calamari, son. And I'm not talking about the food part, but we got up, we battled, and we bombed. We did everything. I remember talking to him, and I was like, man, I'm in trouble, man. He said, what? Harold Washington just died. I said, what we doing? We on our way to the yards. Let's go. And we just went. I mean, I was, at that time, I think I was the youngest cat out of our crew that had a Cadillac.
You're older than me.
No.
Oh.
Hey, look, but I'm thinking at this time, even though I had an option, right, to do something different, I just kept wanting to be a writer. I was like, man, I got to be a writer. Even today, I just did a wall, I think 2 weeks ago. I mean, I'm going to do it tonight if I think I can.
Yeah.
But that's what hip hop is about this city.
Right.
But that was my take on it. So these guys, all of them, if they don't know, they should know now. I grew up looking at them, and I met them, and they invited me in. And I was like, man, you sure it's going to be all right over here? Yeah, come on. Just spend the night.
That goes on to say the large perspective of the family resemblance component is like each of us as we got older, everyone's kind of branched off and started their own crew, and that's another extension of the family resemblance. Like East, he went, Orko went to California. He spawned artists out there in our standards of style and writing and graffiti. So we have a family of connection throughout the Midwest.
East
all the way to the
also
East Coast.
There are
started
there are
one of the biggest crews in the history of really the world. ATT has grown to be one of the biggest crews
So
globally,
what
not
that amounts
just
to our
America.
family,
Which started what?
he
Kansas,
has
from
about-
here to Kansas City.
He has 100 kids.
Right. Can I,
Chicago, Midwest style.
can I have
Go ahead,
somebody
go ahead.
come up for a second? This guy right here, old ATT crew.
Okay.
This was one of my original paint
Oh,
Who's
partners.
that?
yeah.
Ah,
This
the
is
old
somebody
guy
I
snuck
haven't
in.
seen in decades. He came out.
And so on and so forth. Orko went to
Everybody
California.
everybody here knows who this is. This
Midwest
is Anti.
slang went. Everyone has, and it grows on and on.
He and I grew up together. We met in high school at the Chicago Academy for the Arts, and it's abstracting the typography is what it stands for. So it's a crew that I started. So I'm Indiana born, but coming from a split family, I was back and forth from Hammond, Indiana to Chicago. Chicago is where my mother was based. And I ended up living in Chicago and staying with my mother. Trying to paint with guys in Indiana, being here was becoming too difficult. And I was starting to befriend guys like this, and I was wanting to get up more on the lines here, do more pieces and paintings along the L. So I started a crew locally in 1987 called ATT with this gentleman right there. He was my first member.
Your only friend?
So
or
where
first
are you
member?
at now? Tell these people what led you.
Well, currently I'm living in Denver. Is that what you're asking? Yeah. So.
Yeah, he lives in Denver.
But there was a point in my life where I was basically forced out of the city for Chicago graffiti politics and many other reasons that we're not here to discuss. And I took that scene and that what I had learned here basically with me to Kansas City, where I moved in with my friend here who was the first ATT member. He happened to be going to school at Kansas City Art Institute, so I saw that as an easy transfer. So went there. Together we painted all over Kansas City and started a scene there, which that scene then bled into Omaha. It bled into Oklahoma. It bled into St. Louis.
Berlin.
We started the scene in St. Louis. There was no graffiti scene there. We literally started it. We painted the very first train. When they opened up the transit authority, I painted the inaugural train that rolled out with everybody in it.
Is that past the statute of limitations?
Nobody's looking for me. My old ass is not in trouble. But it's that kind of thing. Like this family resemblance, the thing that happened here, the dynamic that occurred in Chicago didn't just stay. It exploded out by people leaving also and taking that with them, like Orko and myself and many others. So this, just the documentation of this and this subculture and this whole Chicago scene, it's so important that it gets documented because it birthed so many other scenes in other cities and helped kids on better paths, honestly.
It has to get documented. It has to get documented because you guys are going to leave here, you're going to turn on your radio, and it's going to be some artist that's out of Chicago that didn't have the drive to become a rap artist, a graffiti artist, a basketball player. We created all that. Wasn't nobody doing nothing here. We were just all trying to stay out the game and go to school. We started all of that, get up and go win. So if I go and get the cute girl at the bar, that's because this is my crew. I can go do that because this is how we raised ourselves in this city. We came up like that. So if you see Common, you see all these different people on TV, you're like, man, what is they doing? It came from us because they learned from us. We was the only one fly. I mean, me and these boys had $10,000 rhinestone coats on in the 80s. We created a movement, but we were still Chicago. So if somebody, I mean, this ain't no city where you got winners, man. You know, ain't no winners here before that era. This is that, you're looking at that era.
There was always winners here now.
I mean, but it wasn't really like that. Now, you had, who'd you have?
That is right. So there's always
Lou Rawls.
winners. So I think what Oracle is trying to say is the drive, you know, the motivation of being a graffiti writer. What is driving us? Like, why are we doing it? You
There's
know,
no
so
payoff. Yeah.
there has to be something soulful, because exactly, we're not being paid for something, so it's a passion based movement. So there's the drive that's involved, you know. So Slang, can you talk about your drive when you did the Harold Washington car?
The driving motivation that was tied to that was really working. We're on the phone about going into the train yards the evening to Harold Washington. Well, I guess he died in the morning, but that evening, was it less than 24 hours below 0 degrees? At least, what is 16 below zero? It was supposed to be in the train yards that night. And we was painting with over two dozen artists. The motivation.
That sounds about right.
The motivation.
Chicago winter.
That was probably one of the biggest selfless movements tied to, our, in a sense, selfless act, because we were really seizing the train yards. We seized the train yards. We didn't have rights to go in there. We didn't get invited in there. We went in there to do murals and dedication pieces to Harold Washington, who was at the time to us was one of the, as we were growing into adulthood, one of one of the most, one of the, I think one of
greatest
the
mayors of
most,
Chicago.
Yeah,
just
greatest.
period.
Yeah, he's there. Yeah, there you go.
Undoubted.
Yeah.
Harold Washington was definitely one of the greatest mayors.
Right. So then,
but also in a sense, what it was the movement that was really about, and even though we were crews, we were still individual, but that was when we were growing or evolving into that thing I was talking about, being responsible, and that thing, one of the things I hear a lot in the subculture, and when I remember when it first came about, the whole deal of keeping it real, and real is really just an individual journey or perspective, so it's more keep it realistic than keeping it real. You don't know who has 3 kids at home, who has a bad home life, who can't even make it to the meeting because they can't afford to. I remember around the time of the first meetings and even the time of the Harold Washington train, I definitely know the coverage was bare, and me and my brothers and sisters were taking care of each other. But because of that and the impact and who Harold Washington was, what he was a sign of at that time, it was I remember all the guys who was more about themselves and their crews saying like, Harold Washington's gone. Let's call this guy, because of course we didn't have the pocket robots back then, so you had to call everybody individually. So you're talking about over 24 graffiti writers within less than 24 hours in the train yards doing Harold Washington dedication murals, which in a sense that was the beginning of once we started thinking about the work not just as the individual, but the entire movement as a whole, because it was completely successful. At first I thought it was crazy because so many graffiti writers rolling around in the train yards, so you're easily identified because everybody's running up and down the aisles like it's, like what they call it, Black Friday.
Exactly.
On sale. I was like, man, this is crazy. And it's 0 degrees, and everyone's like doing the train. It was more than 20 trains had to get hit. And that's probably what, pieces or just quick dedications to Harold Washington.
Perfect. So Slang mentioned contacting a lot of different writers. So this is pre-cell phone days. This is pre-internet. So fast forward to now we have all these different platforms and formats. Anyone can Google graffiti, you get 1,000, 1,billion hits. So now graffiti has transcended into like a completely another space. So Trickster, can you just talk about like when you're looking at graffiti like on that format, like are you giving it any type of credit, or do you always go back to like the 80s and always remember those days and wish those days would come back, or are you for the explosion of people just dumping images and everything on the internet? Like what is your view on that?
Well, essentially, I mean, I'm a purist, but I am a futurist as well. So I guess I want a pure future. Well, essentially, graffiti mimics all of these standards. Like here, if you look at it in a symbolic sense, we are the precursor to what Facebook is, what Instagram is, right? Because essentially graffiti preceded these things by 20 or 30 years. Because essentially it all starts out, you look at Facebook for reference. Initially, they called it, you had a Facebook account and you had a wall.
Right.
You remember before they changed the
Right.
timeline? It was a wall. And what did you do? You go and you wrote on somebody's wall.
Right.
So that whole concept of a network of people having an interchange, communication network, being able to exchange art pictures or communicate back and forth. That's the whole concept of graffiti. We use the train being like conceptually as the moving train of thought, and we're passing information back and forth on this train. So we preceded all of those social media platforms. When you look at Facebook, you have that wall thing. You leave a tag on someone's wall. Another big thing you see, you got to leave the hashtag.
Right.
So tag, we use the word tagging. We had that. Tagging, these are all things that are commonplace now. You got tag clouds and things of that nature. So yeah, when you look at it in that respect, in a retrospective take on it, you can see that that it's very evident how we preceded these things. We had an international network, and the trains were sort of like the internet because you would go on the freight trains. Freight trains travel across the United States. Subway trains were local to the city. So the local system was the subway trains and the trains. The international network was the freight network. Like you would watch freights. We would watch freights go by. You see artists from here, St. Louis, Kansas, California, and it's dated 06. It'd be 5 years old. So we would just, this was the whole thing what we would look for. So that's how I would say that,
They were our moving canvases.
Yeah, they were our moving canvases, and there was a
now,
communication network.
I think Target got more trains up than us now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the business.
Mm-hmm. And then also picture network. Once you met other artists and you befriended them, and you meet an artist from another state, you have contact, and then we have the pen pal network. Think of a pen pal network. So we proceeded before internet and computers were even in existence. So like when to reference that, when Case 2 said he was going to bring out the computer rock, I guess he did. Because the computers wasn't even in existence yet.
Yeah,
Did you
to
want
touch
to
on what
speak?
you said, I think there's a pro and a con to that. Nowadays, obviously, you can see things that are going on from all over the world, and can that influence be good? Yeah, or can it be something that poisons what's going on and what's pure and natural to a scene? Yes, absolutely. So I think that's a con, but the pro is that now we have this ability to see artwork from around the world, communicate with other artists from around the world, collaborate, learn from one another, whatever. Whereas in the old days, like you said, we had pen pals. Right. We used to literally take physical photos, and if we had the opportunity at some point in our lives to meet somebody from another city or another country, we sent physical letters, and that came back and forth. Now it's instantaneous. Yep, so that's a pro. That's cool. Mm-hmm. But the con is that many cities now have lost their heart and the soul of what they started doing. What made their city different, what made their city pure, what their style was, because so many other influences have now bled in. Mm-hmm. This whole idea here is to try and conserve and speak about what made Chicago style what it is, and get it documented and solidified. Because nowadays, even though Chicago is still predominant in the graffiti world, there's been so many people and influences that have come in. Some, many parts actually of original Chicago style are being lost. And, there are people like Trickster who are still active, and all of these guys, and myself, who still try to put forth elements of the original Chicago style, but that's really the basis of this whole thing, this family resemblance and this whole movement is, thank you to Dulce for having the foresight.
She Gallery, thank you. His Energy Gallery, thanks for having it.
It needs to be documented. Chicago is Chicago. Graffiti is a worldwide movement, but Chicago is Chicago. We need to document and preserve what happened here.
I agree. We're known as the city of first. These are some of the titles and models of the city. We are known as the city of first because we are the first to develop, to invent things. Although things came from the coast, everything from the coast has to come and meet here in the center. Things begin and radiate out from the center. So Chicago is the freight capital of the world. We have the largest freight network here, and all things from each coast have to come here and wait and get interchanged to get to each other side of the coast. So everything has to congeal here. So that's another thing. With us being as a first, Chicago has that we get the best of all elements: north, south, east, west.
So is everyone understanding when we mention like the word first or first generation? Is everyone understanding that concept and that term? Okay, she's shaking her head like, okay, so first generation means that we were the first ones to start the graffiti movement in Chicago, not by history, but in Chicago alone. So you may see or hear us say first generation or first generation graffiti writer, first generation graffiti artist. So that's what we are referencing to. So
Really quick.
does everyone understand that? Perfect.
Okay, to elaborate on that, if you look at what's written in history, or as far as the origin being in New York and things of that nature, we have parallels here that were going on simultaneously. But the difference being gang writing, graffiti, since we were talking about gangs and gentrification, there was tons of graffiti here. It was mostly gang related though, prior to the artistic presentation.
Right.
Okay.
Forms. Big difference, and he's going to
difference.
explain the two.
Right. So yeah. So essentially, that was the variance on how it started and where it went to. That's all I want to. Yeah. I wanted to mention that.
Okay. Great. So now he mentioned kind of like gang graffiti. So not to get on that, not to deviate, but as far as just to be factual. So of course there was gang graffiti here, but there's a significant difference between gang graffiti and artistic graffiti or artistic expression. So Orko, do you want to explain the difference between those two?
They didn't climb up on that track and get on that wall.
Okay.
Right to the
Did
point.
you hear that? They didn't climb up on that track, right?
Well,
Yeah, the bangers didn't have trains.
also, depending on the neighborhood that you were in, okay, was you also had to somehow, in some cases, pay homage to the local gang in the area where they would tell you, hey, we're going to let you be here in our neighborhood, put that shit up, blah, blah, but you got to put our name up somewhere.
Yeah, how many times did we have to give a gang member a can, too? They would
Many
show up.
times.
That
Many
too.
times.
It's like, hey, you let us get a can. Well, there you go.
I used to do crowns for the Latin Kings before I knew what they was. They called me Little T. I would get $5 a crown.
When I first started in Little Village, when I first started in Little Village, I went by the name of Frizari, okay? And I had a night job where I was walking home, and where I was working, they would throw out spray cans. So I would take some, and on the way home, I started writing Frizari, like on these viaducts. And a couple of times twice I got stopped by cops to tell me, hey, where you going? I'm going home, coming from work. It's like, do you know this new gang called Frizari? I'm like, oh no, I've seen that. Like, well, you better keep an eye on that because they're just coming up, and be careful. Be careful going home. I'm like, no, I will. Thank you, officer. Little that they thought it was a new gang. It was me. I couldn't tell them that. And we're talking about like early '80s, where I used to be a floor master breakdancer with the floor master crew. But back then, everybody wanted to be cold. Everybody had like Frosty Freeze and this and this and ice, whatever. So I was Frizari. And of course
Sir Chill.
they
Sir
thought
Chill.
it was
I
a
kinda
new
like that
gang.
name.
It wasn't until '85 that my daughter Tess was born that I went ahead and Fest, Tess's father, Fest. And then I've been known, by Fest from that point on. And even though some of us have switched names depending on what where we were at the time, whatever. Roan, what else? Type, Trickster.
Yeah. See, well, the reason we differentiate. Let's talk about names.
There's a whole reason why names change. So
Yeah.
if you want to elaborate on that.
The whole concept is the naming convention. It's hard. Let me give you an idea how extreme it is.
Can I ask a question
Every word.
first? Why did you choose Trickster?
I chose Trickster because my first name was Mr. Tricks, which was a play on the word Matrix. And then I changed it to Trickster because of, essentially because of Devsky.
And what year was this?
This was 84.
Yeah.
85,
There goes-
85, 84,
You was
85.
already
There
trickster
goes
when I
with
met you. and That's it.
Devski.
Yeah.
That's another thing that a lot of writers were doing. The
Ski,
SKI.
ski and stir
Ski.
and freeze.
Fesky Fest.
Right. So
Stefsky.
the art form is tied synonymously with language and language structures. And what happened was, the thing about graffiti and names, let me give you this, is that right now, today, there was another additional movement that came out called tag bang. And this was happening because kids were out fighting about names. Because think about this: when you have a child, it's hard to think of a name. You have tons of people, with similar names. You got people named Tyrone. You got all these different names that are consistent that everyone uses over and over. So it's hard to think of a name. So if anybody can think of a name right now that's not been heard or pronounced before, so it gets difficult. And then so these kids are out here fighting over the name. So your name is very powerful. It's a very powerful thing. If you don't have a name or a title, it doesn't exist. So the existence component of what we do with this art form is profound in itself. And to elaborate on that, these kids are fighting for names. So you wrote this name, you couldn't write this name without adding a number to it. So if I wrote Trickster and another guy comes out and writes Trickster, you're supposed to write Trickster 2. And then if another guy wants to use a name, you're supposed to add numeration to it. So there's rules and regulations to an unruly art form, I guess you could say. But essentially, that was a big component of it. And just like right now with domain names, every word in the dictionary is taken. As far as you try to get a domain name, so you have to create some extra type of arrangement of letter forms or letters or words in order to even create something. So it's very powerful, just knowing that. Kids out here fighting and killing over a name. You get into a fight because you can't write a name.
Slang, how did you come up with your name? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was looking for in 84. I had a series of crazy names that were mostly all tied to breakdancing. I wanted it to be an S, and I went home for about 2 days going through the S in the Webster's dictionary, trying to find something that sounded like something that I wanted to be called when I was 25 or older. And I knew that. I knew that at the time. I would actually pronounce and say it to myself over and over, read the definition like, no, I don't want to be that. What's that? What does that mean? And then I made it to slang, and I realized that what we do in the culture is graffiti in itself is the abstraction of typography, and the word slang is the abstract street version of the English language. So it sounds like the perfect name to use.
Okay, so
I read kind of slow, so it took me about 2 days to find it.
Okay, well,
after school.
how'd you come up with your name?
Okay, listen, here's the thing. I'm going to tell you the truth for one time. I was drawing the little cartoon character from He-Man, the little wizard dude, right? And I was drawing him a lot, right? And I was like, yo, I like this little dude. He pops in, he pops out. That's kind of like how I come on the scene and pop in, I'm going to pop out. And so I found out that the people from the TV company would sue me for that name because I'm not supposed to be drawing this cartoon. And then I just realized everybody in the neighborhood would always ask me a question. I always knew the answer. Hey, Rod, what the store at? Down there. Then it just became only Rodney knows one. Like I knew the answer to a lot of different things, right? And then just to go back into this little game bang thing, how we all kind of incorporated with that, I realized that graffiti was a real good thing when I was on Inglewood platform and the GDs was standing right there, and I jumped on the third rail and walked and blew their mind. And I was like a genius to them. Man, you amazing. so that's how that name came about. But it started off with that cartoon. I would only watch that TV show to see that one episode, it's a little red cartoon. And that's how that name came about. Sorry.
East.
Okay, East, how did you come up with your name?
He gave it to me.
Oh, wow, really?
So yeah, quite literally, I was writing a really bad name when we met. I was writing Graphics 102, and let's not even go there. With an X.
I remember that.
For graphics, an X. Come on.
Can you all edit that part out?
Yeah, that hurts my ears just to even say it. But,
Yeah.
So when I met him at Sheldon's, and he started to mentor me on the lines and get me, kind of up to speed. He lived southwest of me, and pretty much everybody did, because I was, as you already heard, I lived downtown. I lived at that point, I lived in what's I think it's called Streeterville area. He would always say, you know, you are east of me, so I call you East Side. So that eventually just stuck and was shortened to just East. So basically, this gentleman here gave me my name, and thank the Lord he did, because I would not want to be writing Graphics 102 right now.
Right. So you see how important names are, you know, when graffiti goes and graffiti art goes. So my name, Nick Fury, I got it way before the Marvel character, way before that. So Nick is really short for my real name, and then Fury was something that I was going to write separately. But once again, always me thinking, how could I stand out? How can I deviate? How could I stand out in front of 200-300 writers? So I saw a writer's name by the name of McPeck, and even Trickster had told me that's train, right? Right, okay. Just some history. So I saw that name and I thought it was like so cool, just the fact that there was a two-part name. So I'd never seen that before. So I just thought about, well, you know, I can combine Nick and Fury just to stand out. So that's how Nick Fury came about. And then I also wanted to kind of transition into the art world, or the legitimate art world, or just to kind of like move it forward. So if you're looking at it, or if you've seen it on paper, or if you hear it, you don't know if it's a character, you don't know if it's a real name, you don't know if it's fiction, nonfiction, but it's a name that I could transition into like a gallery or to a museum. So even at a very young age, I was thinking about like moving things forward and how can I stand out. So that's how Nick Fury came about.
And speaking of the names too, I think there was something that's fairly unique to Chicago, at least I feel like it was, because I didn't run into it a lot, is that we had acronyms for our names.
True.
When Trickster would write Tyke,
yeah,
it was Tyrone, Young King of Everything. You know, that was, I think, fairly unique as well. And you already explained, yeah, you know.
What, Slice serving you suckers every day?
Serving you suckers every day. East was extremely advanced spray can techniques.
Yeah.
So it was like, it's funny, you know, multiple names, even the names themselves had acronyms. I mean, it was just like this constant, always playing with words and wording and verbiage, and just constantly. And you know, and we talked earlier about changing names. There were multiple reasons why we changed names, because we got too known for this and the police were looking for us, so we changed our name for that.
Right. That was like the real reason.
Or we just
or to create variation.
The main reason.
Or to create variation in your work, so you don't get. There was a thing in the movement called running an outline. When you keep doing the same, everything you do starts appearing the same. So you switch the letter around so that you can have, get your practice with the full alphabet.
Yeah, and that was another reason to change it, was to try something new, push yourself to do something different.
And after you got locked up in the police, what your name was, you had to change the name, or they come directly to your house for a
That's the truth. Yeah. Well, there was a top 10 list, and they knew who the top 10 writers that they wanted to bust were. And if eventually, if they found you and you could be associated to that name, it was all over for you.
I'm still fascinated.
And those guys, they got that book from the graffiti writer who the film, and they developed the film and went to pretty much every high school in Chicago to find the vandals from, what was that, third meeting after the raid?
Yeah. And the CTA, I mean,
Yeah,
there was
a
a CTA battle that the CTA held. How many years? I know they did
was
it.
in the 90s, though. What was that?
They did one. It was like 93.
That lasted for 3 years. My crew aerosol at that time. I supported my crew, but I didn't participate because of the massive amount of damage that I did. So I didn't want to I didn't want to get the knock on the door. I didn't want to, the handcuffs or whatever. So I was there for my crew, but I didn't participate for that specific reason. So the book that he's talking about, or that we're mentioning, so there's a book or like some type of like document of whether the transit police has it or the CTA, and both of them, they just go back and forth and comparing notes to see who's doing what, where, and so forth. So it's just a case building system that they're doing. So I optioned out of the CTA contest. Other people participated. So my crew was there, but I was just there in support. So
yeah,
you know.
they basically created that to make us think that we were getting to paint legal walls all over the city that we wouldn't normally be able to paint, when in reality they were documenting us. And they were associating our artwork and our tags with us and taking our pictures.
We went to Whitney Young and got some phony IDs and went to 11th and State and did a documentary on how graffiti is destroying the city, and we want to know who the top guys are. Well, my name came up third on the list. San Francisco it is the next morning. I'm out here, man. We went to the police station. We said, we doing a documentary. This thing is destroying our city. Agon and Shalowski gave us the list. We had phony glasses on.
Though. Agon and Shalowski, I don't think I did say. So they were like the first police that were brought from the New York
for us
City Graffiti Task Force.
Chicago's graffiti squad,
yeah. The graffiti squad was built from the New York City's Graffiti Task Force.
There were a lot of these events that I'm hearing, that I knew about, that I heard about. I couldn't go. I was married. My wife wouldn't let me. I had a wife and kids, and man, these little kids. This is one of my kids.
That's the best crew you ever made.
Yep.
Did you have any idea that we was getting in that much trouble afterwards?
No, because I wouldn't get the phone calls like they would. Because
did we have your phone number?
Yeah, everybody did. But well, see, the thing is, I made it a point that when I was going up, when I was going up to do a wall, I only took one or two persons with me. I never took a whole bunch of people
I
to
kept
avoid
that same philosophy in Kansas City. I never painted with more than three of us.
Another philosophy that I installed in him was this. After every piece, what do?
Clean up.
You have to clean up after yourself. I installed that in him because think about it. You're a homeowner or you're a property owner. You wake up and you see this piece on there and they're like, damn, vandals, and you're gonna be angry about it. But on top of that, now you gotta clean up their mess. That's worse. So guess what? Within a couple of days, that piece is gonna be gone. As opposed to they're gonna see this on the wall and they're gonna be like, wow, that looks nice. There's no mess. Nobody was there. It just appeared overnight. So I've always kept that, and I instilled that on him and others that I've talked to. Pick up after yourselves, because as a homeowner, as a property owner, you're not going to want to clean up.
I thought about it as far as having fingerprints on the spray paint.
Not to mention the evidence that gets left behind. Yeah, I mean it's
that I never.
I just serves dual purpose.
Yeah, dual purpose.
Well, that goes back to the debate of what is art and what isn't art, and how we went through those early stages at the onset, and now we see that it is the most widely accepted and adapted art form for youth culture across the world. Hip hop culture is growing, and it's getting. We've reached the cultural designation of a super culture just by sheer numbers of participation. We're not a subculture no more.
Or just we're art movement known to man.
Mm-hmm. It is a
fastest growing,
culture.
The fastest growing of all.
Fastest growing culture.
So, as he mentioned, a super culture, subculture, super culture. So there are 4 elements of hip hop. Can anyone in the audience name all 4, or can anyone name at least 3 of them? Can anyone raise their hand and name at least 3 elements of hip hop? Oh, come on! One. Can someone name 1 element of hip hop? Okay, wait, not you right there. Someone in the back. Can someone name 1 element? Break dancing. Okay, 1 more. Okay, DJing. Okay, just 1 more. No, tricks. Not you. Okay, rap. Okay, okay. There's 3. Can someone name just 1 more? Okay, kind of think about what's going on here. What's the 4th element? No, not you. Can someone just think about what's exactly graffiti? So those are the 4 elements that make up hip hop. Okay.
Some people say 4.
Right. Some people say 4.
They argue that there's 5.
Right.
5 elements.
Wait. Did someone say skateboarding? Oh, no. No. Sorry, but no.
I know some pretty fresh skateboarders out
Right.
That's an
I know
individual
some skateboarders.
No,
are
not right. Exactly.
although it's
Those
got
are
a
separate. Wait,
Ru-
say it again. No, 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 no. So it was just right. That's closer to Chicago stepping or whatever. But you know, in the audience, we named
Y'all have the beatbox dude out? Y'all have Dougie Fresh and Biz
Pen-
That
Markie
was
out?
part of MCing.
right. That's part of that's right. That's part of MCing.
Yep.
Right. So, okay, we all agreed. Okay, 4 elements of hip hop. Everyone named them. So this is what we're doing right here. We're just a okay. She got it right here.
What else is missing?
You?
Knowledge, the fifth element.
Yeah.
So right. So we're just representing like a specific part of it. Now, even though some of us may rap or like DJ, I used to break. I think Tricks used to break. I've
I think
seen
every single
Slang
one of us.
Right. We was all breaking. We was all doing that. So now this is your opportunity to ask us anything about graffiti or anything that we have talked about. So now here's your opportunity. Okay, you right here with the red hair. Okay, Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Okay, Susan, what's your question?
Global culture.
So
But the concept, it's expanded.
Right.
It expands when any artist gets involved in it and brings their own thing. That's the whole thing of family resemblance. The influence comes through from my influences in graffiti existed before I even got into graffiti. I was drawn since probably absolutely since like 72 or 73. So everything that I was doing before then, I would connect with these guys, and we sit back and draw, and whether it was their something that they picked up from pieces of advertisement or a comic book, or even the styles or the influences of graffiti that predated us that we seen that we wanted to strive to achieve. But at the same time, I was really heavy into drawing any typeface in the news. So my grandmother would always give me the Sunday paper, and I would emulate everything from the comics on into the movie sections and the logos to all the different companies before or movies coming out before I even got into graffiti. So when I got into graffiti, it was almost like I was custom built to start making, not only making up my own style of it, but the influences from all the artists that I worked around.
It also, I'm sorry, to elaborate on that, it also has taken some of us from regular art, being as little kids drawing, getting into graffiti, and it also has taken us to what we do now or other parts like airbrushing. I've been airbrushing for 36, 37 years, and I've, obviously with the graffiti, tattoo, I'm a tattoo artist as well. So it's like, it's taken each one of us. Graffiti has also taken us and helped us become what we are now. So as far as an art form, it is an art form. It doesn't have to be just letters, but adding to it would be, the letter form.
Perfect. So do you now do you have a better sense about what's going on?
Well,
It's just
in the
it's
sense of writing our names.
exactly
Writing
like
our names
like
up.
the
Mhm.
hmm.
Exactly.
Right, as in writing, as in
Mhm.
the physical action of writing, not as in like an author. So a lot of people get that term
But visual
confused, right?
authors, in a sense, if you think about the thought of productions and pieces and murals, there's themes, there's compositions, there's and stories tied. We can go. Maybe the words are not there, but if you really think about it, it's the universe. When you see these giant productions, whether they're in Europe, whether they're in Berlin,
True.
whether they're in Rome, you can see what the story is without knowing what the dialect is or behind the names that's on it. They usually lay out and compose stories. And one of the
Perfect.
reasons I started drawing.
Right. So what he's talking about is kind of like a visual writing, communicating through another form. Does anyone in the back, or does anyone have a question? You right there with the hat right there, yeah.
Okay.
I think that is hip hop. Punk rock is hip hop. I mean, it is because hip hop.
Right.
Hip-hop,
Period. Like
hip hop
period.
did
Yeah.
not repel any influence.
No, I'll say.
That's so true.
No, I'll
It's
say.
inclusive.
Is it, wait a minute. Let's just let him. Okay. Let's just let him finish. Yeah. Let him finish. Yeah. Right. So it's a very complex question. It's going to take I mean, we can each give a similar or different answer, but can just someone give
I think a lot of artists,
answer, like a 2-minute answer,
Sure.
just to address
I think
this
a lot
question
of
right
artists go out there and do their thing, not thinking of a general. Oh, I'm doing this for hip hop. No, they're doing it for themselves. They're doing it for, like what we said, we're doing it for Chicago, for the public. So we're not doing it to include ourselves in the hip hop movement. So MCs don't go and do graffiti to include themselves in that part of the movement and themselves. So each one will do it for themselves or for the public's eye. not including themselves. Like 35 years ago, we did not know or even believe or think or nothing that we would be sitting up here talking about this. We were out there doing our thing because we liked it, because we wanted to, not because we wanted to be included with New York in the hip hop movement. No, we just did it because we loved it, and we still do.
But also the movement in itself was more the idea of hip hop being tied into the four was it being more so tied to New York's history. So New York's history, while the hip hop era was being born, it merged in. And if you could think of yourself as maybe you're a musician, you may play with a jazz band and you may play with a rock band too. Which one do you clearly identify with, and what are the most or the masses accepting it as? Graffiti in itself, that term came up by, from what I heard, a reporter. It was the idea of graffiti being tied into the identity of graffiti writers as we see it. That term it wasn't came up by graffiti artists, by the artists who were the earlier guys creating it. That was what it was pegged as, and then somehow that got accepted. So that's one of those things where I think it's a thing where the masses of the population or people tied to whatever geographic location, we could say that it's hip hop in a sense, but I could say, hey, I was going to a lot of house parties back then too. I was in the disco. I was at the Rainbow and Hot Wheels too. So, and I like, old school soul. I like blues, but I'm a b-boy to the end. I practice almost every area from realism to abstract to murals to cartoon animation, but graffiti is my first love.
Perfect. So
I met a couple of guys from New York all the way to San Francisco. I met a bunch of Puerto Rican cats, white cats in New York, right? And they never heard Run DMC. And I went out to California, and Qbert and all them boys had never heard Run DMC. But when they opened up their black books, we realized that they had technique and style. So you respected the style of what was in the book. So I can't really say that, because if somebody on the 5 line got a dope letter style and he sends 6 cars down my way and they dope, I gotta be like, man, dude, kind of fresh. But he may have never heard of Biggie. I can't say that. I can't give it up like that.
Can I take a larger grasp and encompass both of the questions that were stated? Essentially, I've said before that writing in public spaces precedes property ownership. So that'll address anything up until this point right now, from hieroglyphics, cave art, all the way up into graffiti writing now. Once again, right? Property, writing in public spaces precedes property ownership. So to say that you can't write this on this wall, this is innate in the human structure, the human form. So bringing that all the way up to current, as the gentleman in the back stated, how does that relate? How do we tie it in? So now we're in the modern age, and the term writers is what the original founding members on the East Coast called themselves. They call it style writing. And the term graffiti, like Lang said, was passed down through one particular newspaper or magazine article that came out in New York in 72 or 73. And then it was attached, the term graffiti was attached to this movement. So that is not the term that I utilize, and this is not the term that a lot of the practicing artists utilize.
Yeah, and hip hop in itself, from the musical aspect, was more so-called b-boy music by the guys who were practitioners of the culture. So hip hop as a whole, I think that was directly born from, that
it was commercial.
New York's agreement, the agreement that was made by the masses. Because you think about how graffiti writers from the south side to the north side, to the west side, each one of them was a clique. We were all, it was proven to me, and I was in denial. Because when a long time ago I did an interview, and the guy said that, you guys do a lot of things that the gangs do, and they don't do that nowhere else in the world. Chicago's one of the only places that flips graffiti writers. Me, in my mind, I'm thinking this goes on around the world. But Chicago inherited from the gang culture and our influences from the gangs.
Yeah. Flip is when we write their name upside down, backwards.
Which is
that's unique to here.
Yeah.
'Cause you need-
Only to
Which is a
Chicago,
sign of
nowhere else in the
disrespect.
world.
It's
And
so to the gentleman in the
found that
back.
out through the
Okay,
interview.
did we answer your question, or do you understand it just a little bit better? Perfect. So we may have a little more time for maybe one or two questions. So if you have any questions about graffiti that you don't know, or you're dying to know about, or something like that, something you've never heard, something you've never read, like now is the moment.
Yeah, and also feel free
Yeah.
to ask any question, you guys.
Right. So,
we're here right now, and
Right.
and I'm pretty sure everybody here is coming from different perspectives, but also the same perspective and for the same cause. We're here for you. So if you guys got questions, I think it's best,
Gentleman,
please do. Feel
gentleman
free
in
to
the
ask.
blue shirt and the blue jacket right there. Yeah.
Go over my name. Go over my name.
Well,
That goes back to what I mentioned before about
wait,
tag banging.
He just addressed it. So usually when there's a rival crew or rival person, your name would get flipped. So that's okay. Right. So we're just focusing on like the unity part of hip hop, and we're giving you like some insight about about hip hop and about graffiti.
Yeah,
So
wanna
we're going to
focus.
deviate away from
Yeah.
that question. Yeah. Gentleman right there. Right. So. So can we have both of these come up on stage for a few seconds? Yeah. So with the crew, it's just it can be broken down into different ways, and there are different reasons why. So my crew, my first crew was called Pin One Public Enemy Number One. So it's usually a 3-letter based crew, and every letter usually stands for something. But in the bigger picture, it's about the unity. Also, it's about support, and it's also about
Production.
Lookouts.
Being proliferate.
Getting your name up,
Proliferation of
right? Getting your name up and getting your crew up more. So if you have 5 people in your crew and you put in your name and your crew up, obviously by the numbers, it's a numbers game. So that crew will appear more versus than someone that's solo. So that's pretty much the basic. I mean, there could be different like explanations or whatever, but that's just pretty much about the basic reason and the methodology of like why a crew exists. Someone else want to elaborate on the crew?
Well, we had a situation in Chicago where we was riding on the bus, and we was trying to keep up with this one dude, and this one dude name was Carr, and his name was on every bus from the hundreds to up north to everywhere. And all of a sudden, one day, they decided to reveal to me that they were a crew. 7 people. They beat us.
So kind
that's
of going back to like exactly what I'm explaining about, why a crew, the importance of a crew.
Also,
The
it's
crew
about
was a
getting the
family. The
number
crew
up.
was like
Yeah.
a pact. It's
Exactly.
a tribe in a sense. It's a tribe of like-minded individuals, and at that time we were all discovering each other. Like the majority of everybody here seen each other's names on the train before we physically met in real space.
Exactly.
And as you meet more and more writers, you see the little shady kid at the end of the bus, and these guys shoe dye all over his shoes, and you approach him, and he tells you what he writes. You're like, wow, you're that guy. So every writer that we met, everybody here met each other as a discovery. Like, wow, that's you.
Also, as
We
far-
all met each other with, wow, that's you, and either
Your
became
reputation
friends,
precedes you.
connected each other
Exactly.
as friends, and more so say, hey, I like this guy, I like that guy, this guy's really cool. Let's get together and do something together.
Yep.
So it was being born then. So we were making up the rules as we went. We are all a different version of Tarzan. We're like the wild kids who developed and created or bonded on something that we had in common and just made up our own rules and kept going. We definitely had set ideas and these standards and ideals, but you gotta think those were being made up and ran by kids who was 15, 16 years old.
Also
Perfect.
another good thing about crews, and a lot of crews had this, but for instance, Slang would be the character guy, Trickster would be the letter guy, so and so was that, and then there was the one guy that would have to be the lookout, or the two guys that would be the lookout. So with the crew all being out there and doing that production, well, the character got done, the letters got done, this got done, and there was lookout. So that was another good thing about having a crew, that you had the numbers to do the one thing that everybody was after.
And somebody had to get the paint.
Right. So
Somebody had to go to Sheldon's and rack some paint.
right. So hopefully that you've got some insight tonight about what we're talking about and about graffiti, slightly touching on hip hop, and hopefully you understand and take our stories and like cherish them. I mean, it's going to be on I think a YouTube site, so you can also like view this. But I just want to thank like all of these gentlemen on stage. They're all my friends. So I want to thank Take Two and Dulce and the Epiphany Art Center, Center for the Arts, for putting this on. You two come up on stage.
Come on, take.
Right. If you all want to just say a few words. Okay, let me introduce. Okay, this is Take Two right here.
ABC, yep, crew. B-Boy B, ABC crew. B, ABC crew. We got lots of crew representation here. Crew is very important. And my first graffiti piece that I have, Take Two, it says Depeche Mode in it. So we were like about all the guys that the Mad Crew that I started. I met those guys. They were wearing rock shirts. So it isn't always about that music, but that movement was all about the youth making it up as we went along. So that's what we did. Yeah. And Dulce?
Well said.
Thank you so much. Now, my shirt, as you can see, is a Rusto shirt, and it reads freedom of speech. To me, this is what this is, graffiti. Somebody asked about hip-hop and the actual music. We hear people like Too Short. I know we talked about that. That, to me, is demeaning, and there's people that confuse rap music with what I consider hip-hop. Hip-hop, to me, is something that expresses love and knowledge, not demeaning anything, or I'm the best, or I need the most money, or anything like that. So that to me is what that fifth element is: love, unity, respect. And that's why this is so important to me. So I studied business for the arts in 2014, and I was asked to pretend that I could have my own business. And I grew up with these writers. I have my brother here, Nick. He's in a wheelchair. That was my inspiration. He was shot in the head by a gangbanger. And because of his graffiti, he still gets up. And because of his graffiti and his knowledge, he was able to put himself through school. And that was my great inspiration. And I said, you know what? Everybody needs to know this. And everybody needs to know that there is a weapon against violence, especially here in Chicago. We are so known for gangs, as we have seen, and have been able to evolve our way through the arts and through this unity. And that is dope. And that is important. And that's why we're here. This is the first of 4 events. We thank so much to the Epiphany Center, so very much, for giving us this platform, this opportunity, for you, for being here, for Trickster, for working with me. If it wasn't for Trickster, none of these guys would be working for me. with me, not for me. So sorry. Take Two project manager. He took this on. He saw me being overwhelmed. He's like, don't give up, don't give up. And even though I'm not in a crew, this has become my crew. This has become my family. So I really appreciate that. And one of the things right now, we're focusing on one of the elements, and that's graffiti. But later on, we're going to also focus on the rest of the elements. And we're going to have some competitions, healthy competitions, of course. And one of them is going to be with having to do with breakdancing and all of the elements. So our first exhibition is going to be March 4th, and that's going to be an exhibit just on the graffiti with all of the writers that we have here. And then we're going to have our second panel in January with our second set of writers. We have B-Boy B, we have Take Two, we have Warp, we have Pengo, and we have Drastic, who are also going to be joining us. So please stay in touch. And we're also going to have a very healthy competition with MCing. So one of the opportunities that I had was to work with the Cultural Center, and I had a conversation with Cesar Visual, who asked me, hey, what's all this She Gallery all about? And I was like, well, you know, I was having these dreams, and it was a series of dreams, and I think it's very important to pay attention to your dreams. And he said, what's this dream all about? I said, well, you know what? Martin Luther King, he talks a lot about dreams. Did he have an actual dream? And he was like, yeah, he did. He had an actual dream. And I really thought about that, and I took that home. And when I went home, I said, yo, I had a dream. And I hear Martin Luther King, he did too. And when you have a dream, follow it. That's what you do. Yo, I had a dream. I went back to school. Maroon and gold, cherry oak, stairs of divine. With my crutches in the light, I climbed up the stairs. And down the hall is where I go to class. Smiling and social, just like before. But in my awake, I was in a hole. Different kind of a state of mind. Let me rewind. Yo, my name is D37. Born and raised. Born in, of course I messed this up. I was in a panel at the Latina Expo, and I did this with so much grace. And right now I was like, oh my God. Okay, so I'm gonna start all over. Y'all don't mind? Yo, I had a dream, and I hear Martin Luther King, he did too. And when you have a dream, follow it, that's what you do. Yo, I had a dream. I went back to school, maroon and gold, cherry oak, stairs of divine. And my crutches with delight, I climbed up the stairs. And down the hall is where I go to class, smiling and social, just like before. But in my awake, I was in a hole. Different kind of a state of mind, let me rewind. Yo, my name is D37. Born and raised, born in Michoacan, Mexico, raised in Chicago, South Side. Sometimes I feel like, I don't want to die. I did before when I was a kid and up to not long ago. Today, I know the internal war is a little bit more important than me. It is up to me, it is up to you to be responsible to our society. So no, I don't want to die. I did before. Today, too many are dying. It ain't funny anymore. Was it before? I don't think so. But they keep laughing in my face. Yeah, they keep laughing in my face. Every time they shoot another victim, another baby, yeah, they keep laughing in my face. I smile back. I smirk away. This is just the flesh. You can't take away the soul. Down you'll go, down you'll go. And yo, I had a dream. And I hear Martin Luther King, he did too. And when you have a dream, follow it, that's what you do. So that's what I did. I went back to school because that's what my dreams told me to do. Study the arts, business for the arts. She, it is for she. Sharing his energy gallery, a place for all souls, like you and me, like me and you, like Nick Fury and everybody on this panel too. So that was a real flow.
All right.
Thank y'all. So that was actually very literal. I had a series of dreams that led me to study business for the arts at the Hyde Park Art Center through the University of Chicago. And that's how this all got started. So thank you guys so much for sharing this dream with me and this journey.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you for having us, man.
I just want to say
this panel. Have the six of you been together like this ever before?
No.
No.
It takes a special energy to make something like that happen. Right? It takes drive, it takes vision, it takes determination, it takes cooperation, collaboration, all these things that got you guys started. And I gotta say this, it was 3 years ago, over 3 years ago, when we first met and envisioned the possibility of something like this. And I can't express enough gratitude to the seven of you, to everybody that helped make this happen. I learned something new about a very dear friend of mine, Emmett Kerrigan. Had no idea you guys were connected. Our kids went to school together. So this connection is like way beyond here. And you bring it forward.
That's family right there.
All right, thanks to everybody for coming out tonight, and thanks to our incredible panel. This was just beyond inspiring and so educational for me. Been an artist my whole life. In the early 80s, I used to cover my notebook covers with graffiti based on what I saw and try to emulate, these graffiti writers. So it's incredible. Frosty. Yeah, that was Frosty. That was my breakdance name was Frosty. So just amazing. Thanks to Dolce and to She Gallery and Take Two for making this happen. And thanks to all of you and to those of us who joined us on the live stream. Have a good night. Yep. Oh, so these guys all know, but when I was breakdancing, my name was Frosty. Just Frosty. Yeah, because I was white, but I was really cool. Was like that was my take on it. No, I really appreciated the statement about how there was a period where everybody wanted to be cool and everybody was Frosty, and I was in the back one. All right, thanks to everybody. Have a good evening.
Hey, let's go, man.